Welcome, everybody. This is the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for Tuesday, February the 8th, 2022, and we're officially called to order. I'm going to call the roll now. Alderman Peterson.
Present.
Alderman Hanson. Alderman Barnhill.
Present.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Here.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
And Alderman Baggett.
Present.
And I'm present also. So we're now going to have the invocation. We're honored tonight to have Minister Rick Morgan from the Cummins Street Church of Christ. And thank you, Alderman Hanson, for helping us secure him. And I'd ask him to come on up and give the invocation. You'll stand. And then we'll follow with Alderman Potts giving the Pledge of Allegiance, leading the Pledge of Allegiance. So thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we come at this time thanking you for your grace, your mercy, and this privilege of coming together as your people. Father, we're so thankful for this group, this council, Father, to meet, to deliberate, to discuss business that will help each and every citizen of this great city. Lord, we're mindful that in your word you prayed, Father, for us all to be one as you and your Father are one. So, dear Lord, bless us with the wisdom, the insight to come together as your people, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of ethnic background, regardless of gender, regardless of anything that may separate us. Lord, may that which unites us be ever greater than anything that will divide us. Lord, bless your mayor, bless these aldermen, and bless all of us that work together to live in this world. Continue to bless them with the wisdom and counsel they need to make the best decisions that will ultimately glorify you. Lord, we love you, we praise you, and we thank you. For it's in the matchless name of your Son, Jesus' name, that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
If you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for citizens to make comments for items that are not on the agenda. I quickly ran through those speaker cards up there, and I did not find any for items not on the agenda. So if I missed anybody, let me know. I think they're all on one issue. So we'll continue to move on through. Are there any communications from the Williamson County Commission? I have none. So we'll go to approval of the minutes from the January 25th work session, the January 29th special work session, and the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting of January 25th. I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Baggett.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Tonight we have a proclamation to recognize Procurement Month. So whereas the public procurement function supports the, I need to invite Christine.
Where is she?
Or Brock, I'm sorry. For those on the watching on TV, this is Christine Brock. She's our CFO, and so she's going to accept this proclamation tonight. So whereas the public procurement function supports the multitude of services provided by governmental agencies, including the City of Franklin, and contributes toward the efficiency and effectiveness of the city, and whereas the public procurement function focuses on the three pillars of public trust, public service, and justice, which in turn serve as the basis for 6 values of accountability, impartiality, ethics, professionalism, service, and transparency. And whereas the procurement function of the City of Franklin is a team effort whereby its success depends upon the efforts and the cooperation of the city's elected and appointed officials, department heads, department purchasing agents, staff of the city's engineering facilities fleet, law and purchasing departments, and Tennessee Department of General Services Central Procurement Office, and the community of suppliers and service providers and contractors that seek to do business with the city. Whereas NIGP, the Institute of Public Procurement, and other professional purchasing associations throughout the world engage in special efforts during the month of March each year to inform the public about the importance of the role played by the public purchasing profession in business, industry, and government. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of the City of Franklin, hereby proclaim March of 2022 as Procurement Month. So, thank you, Christine. You want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I am privileged on a daily basis to support the purchasing team here at the city. We have 4 folks they're mighty, and they lead us in the purchasing efforts, and we also have purchasing representatives in all of our operating departments who work with them to ensure that our departments have the supplies that they need to do the very valuable work that they do. So thank you for giving them this recognition. I will be glad to take this back to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and appreciate the work that y'all do. Next are miscellaneous reports. I know Mr. Stuckey has a miscellaneous report. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mr. Stuckey. And
I have 2 items. Good evening, everybody. 2 items I wanted to touch on. One is some information we learned today related to Tennessee Department of Transportation project on Lewisburg Pike. This is a replacement of the culvert that is right at the Sawmill Creek. Best way to give you that is just immediately north of the exit from Eastern Flank Battlefield Park. So this is a TDOT project they've been working towards for some time. I will tell you straight up, the city staff has been pushing to have be able to have that project completed with minimal street closure interruption. Right now, the way TDOT has framed it is they want the street closed, Lewisburg closed at that site for the 4-month duration of the project. So that's what we have right now. Starting February 16th, our team continues to work with options and alternatives for that so that we can minimize the time at which the street is closed. But right now, that's what we know, and we're continuing to work with them and express concerns for some time, and as recently as a project meeting last week. So we're still working on that, and we'll keep you updated if we are able to modify that a little further in terms of the timeline and the impact on Lewisburg and how that affects folks traveling that road. So that's item 1. A little more fun item that I want to touch on. One of the things I get to do on a monthly basis is I sign certificates and letters to folks that have reached a certain milestone in their service with the city, every 5-year increment. So, boy, I just, this last month, we really had a group come through that you see a lot in these meetings that I feel like I need to say something about, some of which you've already heard from or you will hear from later tonight. But just in this last month, we had folks reach anniversaries. Christine Brock, our Assistant City Manager and City Administrator and Chief Financial Officer, hit her 5-year anniversary. Vernon Girth, our Assistant City Administrator for Development Services, a 15-year milestone. Shauna Billingsley, our City Attorney, a 15-year milestone. And in about a week or so, Linnea Benny, our City Recorder, will hit 25 years. Wow. So these folks are in these meetings a lot, and I wanted to recognize them. So, congratulations. That's all I have, Mayor.
Surprise.
wow. And I've lost my agenda.
You get the prize, Linnea.
We hired Shauna as a young child.
Yes, that's right.
Let's see if I put
I remember that. She had just learned to walk.
Okay, we're going to go to the consent agenda now, and all items under the consent agenda are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body, and they will be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. Tonight, we're looking at items number 17 through 28, and I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Who was it that seconded? Thank you, Alderman Hanson. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none, ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
You're underneath the paperclip. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett. Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item number 4. This is beginning of old business. This is a public hearing, and this is consideration of ordinance 2021-45, an ordinance to rezone .78 acres from office residential district to Planned PD 1.28 per 6500 district for the property located north of West Main Street and west of Downs Boulevard, located at 1624 West Main Street. Joey?
Thank you, and good evening all. The applicant is proposing to rezone to PD to accommodate the entitlement of 1.28 dwellings per unit acre and 6,500 square feet of commercial space for the 1624 West Main PUD subdivision. Envision Franklin places this parcel into the neighborhood mixed-use design concept, which supports local commercial, professional office, and a variety of housing types as recommended uses. For new development along West Main, Envision Franklin states commercial nodes within these corridors are encouraged at intersections. The eclectic mix of land uses such as neighborhood retail and restaurants should remain. The applicant intends to construct 6,500 square feet of commercial space, as well as requesting a residential density of 1.28. There are no residential units currently being proposed with this plan. Should a future property owner wish to redevelop the property into a residence, a development plan revision would not be needed. So as of now, the site could not accommodate both the commercial use and a residential structure. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-45, as does Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I see no speaker cards for this particular item. If I've omitted any, let me know, but otherwise, seeing no speakers for this, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson, for the second. Any discussion? Ready to vote?
Sir.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 5. This is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-152, resolution approving a development plan for 1624 West Main PUD subdivision with 2 modifications development standards, transitional buffer and sidewalks for the property located north of West Main Street and west of Downs Boulevard, located at 1624 West Main Street. Joey?
Thank you. Generally, the plan as proposed meets the recommendations of Envision Franklin as well as the regulations of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has requested 2 modifications of standards. The first is to request to allow parking, dumpster, and drive aisle within the Transition 1 Zone 1 buffer, and that's to separate new commercial use from existing residential use. The applicant has shown that the minimum plantings needed can still be achieved per the requirements of our zoning ordinance. Additionally, the proposed building is 1 story, so the building is compatible to the adjacent properties in height, form, and mass. Additional shrub requirements in the transition zone will help further screen the parking, which is the principal element that is encroaching into the transition zone area. As part of the conditions of approval, the address to adjust the existing driveway on the site, parking needs to be reconfigured and will locate it entirely behind the residence on the adjacent lot. Staff recommends approval with conditions of MOS number 1, as does Planning Commission. For the second modification of standards, the applicant is requesting to not require sidewalks along West Main. Section 9.6.1 requires that sidewalks be installed on both sides of public and private streets and internal drives within all new development. The city periodically receives requests to construct sidewalks in existing neighborhoods where a sidewalk was not required previously. Generally, sidewalk gap projects are much more expensive to construct than if they were constructed at the time of development. Staff recommends denial of MOS number 2 to not require sidewalks. Should any of the MOS, or should this MOS be approved, staff recommends the condition that the sidewalk fees and lieu be paid by the developer at $19 per square foot for future sidewalk gap projects.
With that, staff recommends approval with conditions of Resolution 2021-152, as does Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that wants to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. I'll entertain a motion, and then following that, I would entertain motions as far as the two modifications of standards, and then we would vote on the entire package of what the approvals are. And I'm getting a nod.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Baggett. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Hanson. Okay, so we now have gotten there, so we're now going to go to modification standard number 1. Is there a motion to allow the parking dumpster with appropriate screening?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Potts, and second by Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Alderman Berger.
Can someone explain to me what appropriate screening is here in this case? Because sometimes I find that appropriate screening is never appropriate enough. So,
That was my term, appropriate, so you bail me out here, Joey.
Happy to. Mr. So there are certain types of greenery and screening that are both, well, not required, but given permission by the zoning ordinance that use a certain amount of greenery. And let's see. I think part of the condition was to require additional. So because this is more in scale and also a smaller overall property than kind of our bigger projects that we've seen before, there's enough green space between the parking stalls and the adjacent property to still meet the minimum requirements for the green, for the screening.
so the screening would be between the dumpsters and the parking?
The dumpsters would be entirely within a enclosure, so they would be screened all 4 sides. But then the parking and then the adjacent property would have greenery and additional screening between the commercial and residential space.
Okay, so there would be additional screening between the parking and the residential? Is that what you're saying?
There's enough space to meet the minimum requirements for screening between the parking and the adjacent residential property.
My concern is the dumpsters, because we've had problems before with dumpsters, and with the minimal requirements from the city, this has never still been enough to screen these dumpsters. I've seen them and I've had calls on them before, to apartments or residential or whatever. So I'm concerned about that it's going to be sufficient to actually screen it. Sometimes we get.
The applicant is here tonight if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would love to hear what they have to say. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
My name's Adam Sager. I'm the applicant. We're the
Yeah.
civil engineer. This property is zoned OR. The next one's residential. And so in the new code, there are what's called transitional screenings. And so this transitional screening has with it a minimum planting. And so we can still meet as many trees. Also, on this particular site, where the dumpster is located on that project, there's a retaining wall right up against it, and the dumpster will sit lower. The retaining wall will then go up, and then there will be dirt above it, and then there'll be trees and shrubs
In front of the
lining
wall.
through there between the dumpster and the property line.
And in front of the
it's-
wall, too?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, along both sides of the wall. And then if you look at the overall map, in all likelihood, I can't predict the future, but in all likelihood, the properties to our left or to the west will likely develop in a similar nature anyway on this particular property. So I hope that
Okay,
helps.
yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Let's vote on modification standard 1 then. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton. Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to modification standard number 2, which has to do with sidewalks. on Downs and sidewalks on West Main. The applicant has requested no sidewalks, is my understanding, so I'll need a motion to clarify what the board's wishes are as far as the sidewalks. If you don't want sidewalks, we would request that you consider the charge for $19 a square foot.
Motion to
For-
approve, but I don't, clarification, there's just no sidewalk on West Main.
Right.
They are doing it on Downs, I believe.
They
Is that
are.
correct? Yes.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Is there a second?
I second.
And does your motion include payment of
Yep,
$19
and payment, yeah, fee and the,
for the sidewalk not being constructed on
Correct.
West Main?
correct.
Okay. And second? Okay, open for discussion.
Go
ahead, Alderman Baggett.
The point of discussion, the planning commission, the other boards have voted unanimously for this modification, and I think I said the last time that I think due to the residential nature of the piecemealed that it would take to have a sidewalk on West Main, is probably going to be some sort of streetscape, city-led initiative on West Main. And so I think that this makes sense.
Go ahead,
What
Alderman
was staff's
Barnhill.
recommendation again? Because I think,
Staff's recommendation for MOS number 2 is disapproval. Should the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approve it, we just request the additional $19 per square foot to the sidewalk gap
basically
projects.
staff is saying, put the sidewalk on West Main, put the sidewalk on Downs, and do away with the $19.
Yes, that's staff's recommendation, yes.
Clarification.
Okay, go ahead, Alderman Potts, and I'll get Alderman Berger after that.
I do have a concern based on the future development of adjacent properties. So are we saying that the sidewalk that will be installed, and maybe the developer needs to address this, that it will connect to any future development that might be adjacent to the property?
Correct, and I know I had a slide on this at Planning Commission. Is that still in the packet? I did bring color copies if I can pass that out, and I'm only saying that because I think it really helps understand why we're asking what we're asking.
Are you talking this one?
No, it's a.
Let's have
exhibit.
those, and you can make your comment, and we'll continue on.
Okay, I'll make my comment.
No, go
what-
ahead and give us
Oh,
those so
okay.
we can see those as you're making your comments.
Yeah.
If you give them to staff there, and
Thank
they'll
you.
pass them out.
And then one of each of those. So I want to be very clear. What we're not saying is we don't want to put sidewalk in. We're not in opposition to the intent to put sidewalk in here. Each site is kind of a case by case. There's no one size fits all. And so what really brought this on is that in the front of the site, and you're going to see that in one of those two exhibits, is there's two large power poles and also another pole that run right along the site. Keep in mind, this is also a T-dot right-of-way, and it will likely be improved someday. It's on the city's mapping to be improved to a certain standard. And if we were to put a sidewalk in to the full standard that's being requested, it would go right through these power poles and thus make the site undevelopable. These two power poles are monstrous, okay? And so that got us thinking, okay, well, where else could we put the sidewalk? We're not opposed to putting the sidewalk in. And then we're thinking, well, if TDOT's going to build all of this anyway, just like they did on Franklin Road, just like they did on Hillsborough Road, there will be a sidewalk that TDOT installs all the way up and down West Main, from downtown all the way out past Downs. And so rather than kind of shoehorn in something that doesn't really fit, and later on, when TDOT does approve the roadway, or improve the roadway, they'll be ripping that sidewalk out, then why not take that money and put it elsewhere where it could be used today? And so if you look at the map, and that's why I provided the map, the overall aerial, everything in pink or that magenta color, there is no sidewalk there. Green, there is sidewalk there today. So we wouldn't connect to anything. And what we're proposing is a small neighborhood commercial. Right now, the tenant is supposed to be an optometric practice, maybe like a chiropractor, a law office, something like that, which probably wouldn't generate a whole lot of pedestrians anyway. And so because you can't really go anywhere, We just figured, hey, why not make the best of this situation and pay the money in lieu of, and maybe it could go to somewhere else close by. So that's what we're thinking. Again, the staff has been very helpful to work with us on this and say, hey, if you do have to put it in, if you don't get this modification of standards and you do have to put it in, we'll work with you on placement, and we appreciate that. But that's why we're doing the request, if that helps.
Yes, sir, and thank you for providing these.
Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
Are you taking the tree line out
That was my
on
question.
Downs?
If you want us to put the sidewalk in, yes, we'll have to.
No, wait back. The only sidewalk we're doing was on West Main, wasn't it?
No, the
No,
other way
it's
around.
down.
We are doing downs on the picture on the right side. We are doing downs. We are not proposing West Main because that's the TDOT right away.
Say that again.
We are proposing to install the sidewalk to city standards on downs.
On Downs. And that's what I asked. Are you taking the tree line out on Downs?
Yes, we will have to install that
Okay.
sidewalk.
Alderman Berger.
So that tree line you would take out.
Correct.
It looks like a lot of them could be scrub trees. I don't know what condition. Some of them, are you, once you put the sidewalk in, are you required to put any trees behind there?
We will have landscaping requirements on site. I can't say they're going to be exactly right
Right.
behind it, but yeah, we'll have trees on site. There'll be landscaping and then tree islands. And then there is a wooded area in the back of the site. We're going to preserve as many of those trees as possible.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it just seems to me on Downs Boulevard, I mean, on Main Street, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, because it would just be right there.
Correct.
You had another question, Alderman Barnhill?
Yeah, where is the ingress egress to the property? I mean,
We
you
have-
gotta be getting real close to the intersection there.
Yeah, we are pushing those outward. If you look at the plan on the Downs, it's going as far north as we possibly can. We're hugging the property line up there. And then the same way on West Main. At the Planning Commission meeting, at a previous meeting, there was some talk with the neighbor because their driveway encroaches on us, and we have worked that out. And she does not wish us to have a shared driveway there like there is today. And so we're letting her keep her driveway, put it in an easement, and then we'll be right next to it with a new paved driveway. So we're staying as far away as we can.
How far is that?
Oh, 150, 200 feet. Engineering was at the Planning Commission meeting. I think that had that exact number,
So you got
something like that.
Other questions, comments? Ready to vote on modification standard 2? Everybody's clear on what the motion was for modification standard 2, which was collect money for the sidewalk on West Main and build a sidewalk on Downs Boulevard. Alderman Barnhill.
No.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. We'll now go to the original motion that includes the 2 modification of standards which have passed. Is there any discussion on it? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now move to item 6. This is a public hearing. Consideration ordinance 2021-47, an ordinance to rezone 2.24 acres from Planned District to Planned PD 11.61 District for the property located south of North Petway Street and east of Shawnee Drive at 1101 Shawnee Drive. This is the Shawnee PUD subdivision. Joey?
Thank you. The applicant is requesting to rezone the subject property from planned to planned 11.61 district for the Shawnee PUD subdivision. Envision Franklin Land Use Plan places this parcel in the mixed residential design concept, and Envision Franklin has a special consideration that states Franklin Housing Authority properties may include a limited number of multifamily residential in accordance with their master plans. So it is in within the recommendations of Envision Franklin. This particular project proposes to tear down the existing structures on the property and replace them with 6 residential structures for a total of 26 new multifamily dwelling units. Staff recommends approval of ordinance 2021-47, as does Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a number of speaker cards, and some of you indicated rezoning, so I'll start with Vandale Gentry. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Vandale Gentry. I'm a senior mechanical engineering here in the Nashville, Tennessee area. I am with ICT Engineering. I'm here to speak about the concerns of the neighbors about the lighting.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I am,
Perfect.
okay.
Okay.
I am here to speak about the concerns from the neighbors of West End Circle based on the lighting concerns that they have of this project. Because West End Circle sits at a higher elevation than Shawnee, there's the elevation, based on my findings, that the lighting will be focused downward on the parking lot, and it will not cause any glare or any issues from the residents. And I would also like to say that being a Franklin native, that this project is very important to the city. Thank you.
Could he state who he was and who he represented? I couldn't hear that in the beginning.
I am Vandale Gentry. I am representing the Franklin Housing Authority, and I am in the mechanical engineering field based on the plans that were submitted to the city. I did review those, and again, from my findings, the elevation differences. Thank you.
Ginger Parnell, followed by Eric Smith, followed by Heath McClure.
Thank you. I have a lot of emotions, pardon me. My front door faces the Shawnee development. So I'm on the opposite side at the top of the hill. That's on West End Circle. This is my sunset that I'll lose if you build what they're showing they're going to build. I have no problem with public housing. We've had public housing back there for years. I have friends that live back there. We want neighbors. We want good neighbors. We have a very diverse community already. This is my daughter and 2 friends of hers. This was the first day of the freshman year of Franklin High, of Centennial in 2012, raised on our street. And they happened to be standing in front of the first Habitat house that was built on our street. And when we got that news, everybody was like, oh no, and look what we got, this beautiful, that conforms with our old houses, but Franklin planned our houses. I hope you all will plan better on this, to not put a complex up, and not to mention the traffic issues. Those are going to come up, I know, with my neighbors. But our backyards are sacred and always have been, and they're talking about, or the plan is to put parking places behind the backyards, which will be the backyards of these 26 families' little kids. And how many little kids love their backyard? So the parking spaces are depriving. And you look at the Reddick complex. There are houses over there on Carter Street with small backyards, but they're theirs. And then there's these big, what would you rather raise your kids in? To have a backyard or to have a parking lot? And if you have the parking in the back, kids have no choice but to play in the front yard on the street. So I'm just asking y'all to reconsider and plan This historic neighborhood and this historic city is good at planning. And you hurry up, you mess up.
Thank you,
I'm
ma'am.
asking you to think again. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Smith. I live at 601 West End Circle. I've got is it okay to do a handout? Is it okay? I just got this is just some of the development and some information, but we have 3 small children, and we love our neighborhood. We've been lived at Weston's, lived on North Petway right when we moved to Franklin, and we've been here for about 7 years, and we love Weston Circle. Pride. I'm actually a builder, and I've built a bunch of the homes on Weston Circle. But what I'd like to, I guess what my problem is, first of all, I love public housing and what they've done in the neighborhood, and I also really appreciate you guys here and the board and everything. It's just kind of touched with everything that's been going on this evening. It's been quite enjoyable. The problem I just feel like here with this development, and I know that public housing and the engineers have worked really hard to meet the goals and the standards of Envision Franklin, the Franklin zoning, but our problem is the size and shape just does not conform to the rest of the neighbors. The 2-story dwellings, the fact that they're 15 feet off the road, the fact that then you're going to have a parking lot sitting behind, and it just doesn't conform to anything that's in this neighborhood. I believe that the intent of the parking in the back of the buildings that was decided on by the zoning was to bring parking inside.
You'll go ahead and wind up. Your time's up.
Okay. Okay. Well, I believe the parking was intended to be inside the development, and instead, the parking is being brought into our backyards, into our sanctuaries, into our porches, into our gardens, and I did want to show you really quick that an idea I would prefer for this to be on the second page that I wrote up there is what you guys could do if you would just do duplexes and do it just like you guys did on Carter Street. Have everyone have, could probably end up having about 22 duplexes if I count them correctly. I did show some of the other residents on West End Circle that were missed in the proposal. But I just wanted to show you an option. I really think that we should have public housing there, and we should continue to do that, but I would really like us to do it in a different manner where we're not having large buildings that don't consist with the rest of the neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Keith McClure, followed by Bonnie Ferguson, followed by Rachel Lee.
Thank you very much, and I'll try to be brief, and I think I have to be brief. I want to echo what Eric has said here. My family, my wife and I, and our 3 children, young children at the time, bought a house on West End Circle. I call it the last affordable house in Franklin in 2005, and we love it up there. We've raised 3 kids, and we've almost raised the 4th. He's 13. My main, I want to say 2 main things. Number 1, I am for this project. 100% for this project. I'm for public housing. I'm for 26 units. What I'm concerned about is the magnitude and the size of this structure looking down into our homes. So that's secondary. Primary, I'm concerned with the parking, creating an alley in the back. I was talking to one of your aldermen on the phone yesterday. We don't need walls. We don't need fences. Walls and fences don't build communities. Backyards build communities. Backyards that back up to other backyards where people can actually interface with one another. We have a neighborhood where I send my kids down for a cup of sugar or an onion all over the place, right? That's what we want. That's what we need. We need to be able to build communities where people can actually see one another. I don't need to be blocked off from who's going to be living in this space. I want to know them. And the best way to know them is to have green space on green space where we can live and move and have our being actually with each other. I beg you to reconsider. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Bonnie Ferguson, and my husband and I bought the first new construction home on Weston Circle in 2015. And at that time, our little fellow was 2. And we just felt so blessed to have it because we value that area for its unique population, the excellent schools, and convenient access to many wonderful aspects of Franklin. As many of us have seen, Franklin has rapidly become one of the most desirable places to reside. And with that, I can understand the need and goal to provide affordable housing. And I'm a huge supporter of making this a reality for our neighbors. Although the plan that has been presented for the Shawnee development is not ideal for the area in which it is proposed, nor is it the proper way to achieve this goal. In no way would I make a reference to something to be insensitive or hurtful, but in 2010, that catastrophic flooding could have been avoided had there been proper planning, implementation of necessary infrastructure. Essentially, this development as planned will so densely populate that area that it will saturate the neighborhood with people, and it will adversely affect the already scary traffic issues that we experience. It's going to cause strain on our law enforcement and first responders, and it will create overcrowding in schools and completely destroy the private residential presence that we have in that one-of-a-kind space. I'm a huge supporter of change, like I said, and the affordable housing, but I'm not on board with the way this development is planned. I feel like there needs to be improvement in the infrastructure to provide the current residents with resources to continue to live, work, and play in a safe and peaceful environment. Please consider our concerns as this development continues, and I'm going to leave you with a quote by Henry Ford. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Thank you.
Rachel Lee.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Lee, and I live on the corner at 602 Weston Circle, which is closest to Shawnee and Petway. And I have to tell you that corner is basically in my backyard, and the traffic is already atrocious back there. I can't imagine having even more traffic going through that intersection right now. From what I can tell, the whole Weston Circle development has probably been there for 60 years, maybe 70, which is a very long time.
Longer.
And what's that?
Longer.
Yeah, and I think when people like myself look to buy a home, we're looking for many factors rather than just what the house itself looks like. We're looking at the surrounding areas, the traffic, the neighbors, the green space. And this was quite a shock to me when I found out that all this was going to, I was under the impression when I bought my property that those structures were going to be torn down and turned into green space, because on, I think it's Cherokee, behind there was another larger development going in that was going to offset what was being taken out. I'm with everybody else I've heard speak here. We're all not against this housing development. I just think it has a lot to do with doing it respectfully to the people who have lived in that neighborhood for many, many years. So my concern is the traffic at that intersection and then the parking in the back of the development, plus the lighting, because it goes right into my backyard, just like all my neighbors. So, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Cassandra Blakely Ray, followed by Laurie Hammond, followed by Jim Nickel.
Good evening. Who is my neighbor? My name is Cassandra Blakely Ray, 65-year lifelong resident of Franklin. As a matter of fact, I live 626 Edgewood since 1995, which backs up to the property. I have never encountered any problems. And as a matter of fact, I was raised in Reddick's Court before it was torn down and redeveloped. And to Duran and his board, I want to say thank you for a job well done, for so diligently providing fair, decent, and affordable housing for lifelong residents here in Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee. Thank you. Job well done. I attended the meeting last week. I was appalled at some of the things that I heard. I couldn't afford West Haven, but what I see is you're making West End Circle your West Haven. I was appalled to hear it's not a good fit. Wonder, did you consider when you built those big houses, was it a good fit? Did you consider the neighbors that were there? I hear our community, our children. But what about the lifelong children and families that have been here? Did you consider maybe where you're living now wasn't a good fit, but no one turned you away? I heard forecasted pardon. I considered that excuses and labeling. I heard traffic issues. Traffic issues are all over Franklin. Again, I've been here for 65 years. Traffic is a big issue. And as far as traffic, that's a city of Franklin problem. And lastly, to you, the mayor, and all of you elected officials, shame on you if you choose to vote against this problem, knowing that affordable housing has been an issue for years and years. You meet year after year. Nothing has been done, no remedy. Here we have a good plan, but if you choose to vote against this plan to appease those that already have, shame on you, there is a day of accountability. Who is my neighbor?
Laurie Hammond. And Jim Nickel, if you'll be on the ready.
Good evening. I'm Lori Hammond. My husband and I live at 604 West End Circle. I've lived there for 5 years and have been in Williamson County for 23 years. It's always been our dream to live in historic Franklin. One of the reasons we bought our home is because we love the area. We love that it's so quaint and we truly feel like time has stopped. Our neighborhood is the kind where people wave as they drive by, they stop and speak when you're out in the yard. We love that no matter who you are or where you live, you are important, and we all are what makes our neighborhood so special. I don't think anyone tonight will say they will oppose affordable housing. My understanding from the meeting the other night is that this housing has been there since the 50s or 60s. We all bought knowing that Shawnee and the residents who live there are an essential part of our neighborhood. They are the neighborhood. What my husband and I are concerned about is the size and scale and out-of-place feel the proposed project has. Not only are you increasing the number of units from 16 to 26, but you're also increasing the number of bedrooms per unit. This impacts so many things. Bigger doesn't always mean better. The proposed unit behind my home is 75 feet in length and 20 feet in height. It is replacing one single-family unit, one two-family unit, as well as a tremendous amount of yard space. Your proposed plan has parking behind the units, which means we are dealing with parking lots, lights, etc. This does not fit into the community of West End Circle, Shawnee, and North Petway. Why can't the new homes be 1 or 1.5 stories with yard space? The people moving into this development deserve to have a home with a yard, with driveway parking. They deserve to have a home that fits with the rest of the community. That's what's currently there. Please consider what this development, as it's being presented now, will do to our little piece of historic Franklin. More traffic, more people walking to the park and downtown with no sidewalks, parking lots and backyards does not seem like the best proposal for this area. Let's make this new development transition into our existing community seamlessly. Make it feel like home for all of the residents of North Petway, Weston Circle, and Shawnee. When I was coming tonight, I was trying to find a quote to kind of portray how I felt about our community. And this is what I found. Community is so much more than belonging to something. It's about something together that makes belonging matter. And I think that's all we want, is we want everyone to have a home, and we want everyone to feel like they have what, the neighbors are consistent. We have yards, we have homes, we have backyards, and we have neighbors that want to spend time together, and everything stay quaint and homey like it is right now. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
How do you do? I'm Jim Nickel Architects. We've been the architect on this project and the previous Chickasaw project that was just completed last year. Community to us is about transition, growth, evolution, and neighbors working in unity. To that end, Franklin Housing Authority has always been very, very thoughtful about their neighbors. And just recently, we had the opportunity to have a community meeting and to discuss some of these concerns. We've heard a lot about scale, parking in the rear, and lighting. I would point out that the elevation change is approximately 5 feet. So effectively, we have a 5-foot retaining wall. That's where our site starts. We have a 25-foot buffer zone behind the property, which is mandated by zoning, but I think very necessary to help allay some of these concerns. We have agreed to put up a privacy fence on top of that wall, in addition to planting more generously than is required by code with evergreens to help allay, again, the concerns. But if we put a parking lot and we have a 5-foot wall plus a privacy fence on top of that, effectively we have created a 10-foot zone. So the first floor of our unit is below their eye line. The 25-foot buffer, I think, goes a long way. It's very important. And to that end, we'll continue to work with the neighbors. We'd like to hear their concerns, and we certainly want to help allay their fears. But this is an opportunity for us to bring more families into an affordable position of housing. Thank you.
Scott Black. Then I've got Derwin Jackson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. My name is Scott Black. I currently serve as the chairman of Franklin Housing, the chairman for the Board of Commissioners for that Franklin Housing Authority. And so I obviously am here to support this project tonight. But I want to talk to you about another role that I played for the city back in 2018. The city was going through revamping of the zoning ordinance and had recruited a few of us to come together to look at the transitional features that go, or all the features that go along with multifamily housing. And we met for 6 months or so on that process and developed what's in the zoning ordinance now to address multifamily housing. And if you look at this project and the way that we developed it, it was developed with those ideas in mind. With the size of the roof and the scale of the building, it's broken in the middle. Undulations in the roof attempt to break that up. The transition features in the back. The parking is mandated by zoning. All of these things are all developed from what's in the zoning ordinance. So I want to speak not only to support the project tonight, but I also want to speak in support of the staff and what was done to develop this site plan, because it was done in conjunction with the zoning ordinance and what the city wanted. And that zoning ordinance was a document that you voted on and supported with all those elements in it. And unfortunately, we can't go and just take one piece out. It's sort of like pulling the yarn on a sweater. And so I think that what was done to develop this design was a collaboration between the city staff and our design team. And so for that, I think this project deserves your vote for support. Thanks.
Good evening. The one thing I would just like to say is that I...
State your name there, please, Derwin.
Derwin Jackson. I'm the president and CEO of the Franklin Housing Authority. Is that, we've always taken, our neighbors and concerns, whatever those things are. We've always worked with the city, and the city's always worked with us and supported us on what we're trying to do. and we hope and pray that that continues. But one thing that I would say, you know, when I came here 14 years ago, and ever since then, and as I meet with owners of restaurants and the grocery stores, I tell you the one thing they tell me is that we're losing workers because they don't have a place to live here. And that's going to continue to happen if we don't continue to really commit ourselves to providing affordable housing for all families. Every family that we serve are good families, hardworking families. They work in our schools, they work in our grocery stores, they work in the hospitals. And all we're trying to do is really do our small part, because it's just a small part what the Housing Authority is trying to do. And so affordable housing is what we are committed to, and we're also committed to every community that's here. And this board has always supported us, and that's all I can ask you to continue to do as we try our best to provide for those families that want to live here in Franklin. And these are families that have grew up here all their lives, their children, and they work here, and they want to live here. And so all we're doing as the Housing Authority is trying to do a small part to provide that housing for those families and for those owners. I tell those owners, you need to come and talk to the Board of Mayor Aldermen and let them know the issue that you're having, because that's going to be an issue for all of us that live in this city. I love it here, but I think that everybody should be having the right to live here, and we should put forth that effort to help them. Thank you very much.
Okay, did I miss anybody that wanted to address the rezoning as far as the public hearing? Did y'all fill out a speaker's card? Are you Robert James?
Yes. Thank you. My name is Robert James. I'm with James Plus Associates, Nashville, Tennessee. Our firm is the engineer for the Franklin Housing Authority. We just wanted to say briefly that the Housing Authority, as you know, has worked very hard to comply with city requirements and the zoning ordinance, and will continue to do that going forward into the site plan stage. In our neighborhood meeting last week, everyone spent a lot of time discussing the buffering next to the parking area in particular. And the Housing Authority wants to emphasize that it's willing to go above and beyond the city's normal minimum requirements to help ensure adequate buffering, including doing the following things. And some of these things were already touched on by Jim Nickel, but I'll reiterate. First, in addition to meeting the city's robust transition zone requirement, the Housing Authority is willing to install an even more substantial landscape buffer than is required, which would include evergreens of approximately 6 feet to 9 feet in height when installed. Second, the Housing Authority is also willing to install a 6-foot opaque fence to help serve as an additional buffer reasonably near the property boundary. Third, security cameras will be installed. Fourth, the Housing Authority plans to post signage prohibiting residents from backing into parking spaces, which would help minimize any impacts from headlights. We also note that the site has some natural buffer. For much of the site, there's a natural rise in elevation upward from Shawnee to Weston Circle that provides some natural buffer. Additionally, the presence of mature trees along the property boundary further provides natural buffer. And there also will be a retaining wall coming up from the parking area along much of the eastern portion of the site, and this retaining wall will provide further buffering for things like headlights. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you very much. My name is Pam Lewis, 4081 Columbia Pike. I am Vice Chair of the Housing Commission for the City of Franklin. So I'm speaking in support of this, and I hope that you all will consider. I won't repeat what's already been said. But 90% of the people that will be moving into this project are either from Franklin or work here, as Derwin was explaining. They're not coming here from outside of Franklin. So we're servicing people that are here that are in need of housing. This is a really timely project. It started in summer of 2021, and there have been 2 meetings already with the neighbors. But I think it's important to know that in order to have a certificate of occupancy from THDA, this project must be completed December of 2023. So the clock is ticking, and hopefully won't have to go back to the drawing board. I want to welcome all the newly elected aldermen. I've sat where you are, and it's a very humbling, sometimes difficult experience. I hope you'll treasure your tenure there on the city council and find it as gratifying as I do. Please consider approving this worthy project. Thank you.
Okay, did I miss anybody that wanted to address the zoning? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 6, consideration ordinance 2021-47, which is the rezoning. I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Appropriate
Second.
motion is seconded by Alderman Potts. Open for discussion. Alderman Brown, you want to make some comments?
I may have some on the development plan, but on the rezoning, no further comment.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I would like to have Joey or Amy, either one, just answer one question, I guess, and it may lead to another one. Is anything in this project that has not been approved by staff? Have they done anything, is there anything that you've required that has not been done?
In terms of?
In terms of it would be the development plan.
With the plan itself?
Yeah.
Well, with the development plan, they are requesting 3 modifications of standards, which I'll address.
But you'll
with
address
resolutions.
those?
Yes. So that's just for the rezoning and entitlements for the property.
So basically, from the plan back in the summer to now, whatever you've requested, they've done. If you've requested a fence, if you've requested a tree, if you requested 10 trees over here and 5 over here, they've done that, right?
Yes, they've worked with staff to.
They work with staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Mayor?
I appreciate everybody being here tonight, and Pam, you're right, sometimes it's humbling and sometimes it's hard. And I will disclose for myself, and I guess they can as well, at the public meeting last week, I was in attendance with other aldermen, but I did not speak at all, so it was information only, so just to make sure that y'all are aware of that. I said the last time we spoke on this item, how much I appreciate what the Franklin Housing Authority brings to our community in a very unique way. Derwin mentioned that he's always received our support, and that is absolutely the case with me. I will tell you that I can't support the rezoning, and the reason is it will allow for the density that will bring this type of product into the mix, which is different than anything else y'all have had introduced, whether it's been redevelopment. If you look at Spring Street and the redevelopment of those products, if you look at even over at Reddick, what was introduced there and what will probably come down the pike on Brookwood and those other pieces, this one's very different. And so that's why my support is different, is because the density in that strip of land, to me, does not provide the transition that we have, in the 10 years I've been here, fought tooth and nail to provide for the neighbors who abut new development or redevelopment. It has nothing to do with the fact that I don't think we need this to be redeveloped. I had said a couple of weeks ago, my first home was right around the corner on North Petway. So I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. I'm very familiar with West End Circle. I think that if the density is allowed, or I'm not really sure on the PD and I whatever, that's what's going to allow this to be more dense and give that height and mass and scale. Excuse me, hold on. I also don't agree with the parking in the rear. To me, it screams like the other projects what I've made fun of with AutoZone and Franklin Synergy Bank being right at the street. And especially don't need that in a residential area when you have children that are going to be playing. So I can't support the rezoning, and it's not personal to Franklin Housing Authority. There's many of you who are sitting in that seat that represent them that I respect tremendously, but I also have to do what's best in this situation, so.
Alderman Berger.
I've got a couple questions. I don't know who wants to answer them. Okay, so Alderman Blanton just brought up parking. Parking, how is it separate from the street? How far away from the street is it?
Site elements are more geared for the resolution and the development plan.
Okay, you can answer that then, if you'd
Yes.
like. But there were so many of these things that were brought up here. So they were brought up, spoken to in the zoning, and I don't know if they're appropriate to talk about here or if I should wait. But the backyards, people were saying we're losing our backyards. Who owns this backyard? I mean, is the parking being built on the property that you all own?
No, that's not appropriate.
It's being built entirely within the FHA property.
Okay, all right, so, yeah, I was curious because it sounded like they didn't own the backyard. They had, so the backyards are not going away, people still own their backyards and have them. So, tell me about the screening on the backyards between that and the parking, what is required? Evergreens, so, because, you know, I heard fences and I heard wall, and I'm thinking, wall, fence, is this like super high? How does that play out? And then how about screening with evergreens?
Again, those are more for the development plan. I'll go ahead and answer them for you now, just because that has been
If the mayor,
discussion.
if the mayor wants you to wait,
Or-
that's fine, it's up to the mayor.
Yeah, I've actually allowed kind of, people just
A
put
mix.
down, they want
Okay.
to talk about Shawnee, so.
All right.
I didn't know whether they're talking about the rezoning or whether the development plan. If you put development plan, I have one here for development plan. I'd rather have those comments for the development plan when we get to that.
To answer those
and
then?
just consider the
That
rezoning if
would
we
be
could
fine.
right now. And
Okay.
I think there's less confusion.
Okay, so the type of housing, the rezoning for that, okay, I'm good then. I'll wait for the other ones then. Thank you very much.
But Mayor, if you wait till the development plan to
Yeah.
look at the rezoning, you would have rezoned, and you might not be in favor of the development plan, which then means that you rezoned something that you're not going to approve from a development plan. So I think the development plan, I think the two tied together as far as I'm concerned, and I know we vote on one has to come before the other. But I think that the
It's important
discussion
to you?
is important that they are, that they're tied together. I really think that Franklin Housing Authority may have not done, Mr. Nichols, a really, really good job on explaining the cut and fill and the moving of the units closer to the street, and the fact that there's 18 feet of parking space, and the fact that there's going to be trees back
Yep,
there.
yep.
The units themselves will be 6 feet lower than where they are now, or 5, whatever he said. I think he said 5. We said 6 the other night. But anyway, I don't think he did a particularly great presentation there on what he said. And I think that what he needs to do is be able to tell the people who are here. And I don't want to offend anyone, but I suspect that there's only one lady there that's living in one of the smaller houses. Am I right? You live in a small house too? Oh, okay. All right. Backing up to that project, you don't. Okay, you don't. Right. So anyway, I don't.
I'm not going to be allowing
I
a
know you're
discussion
not.
with the
I know
audience,
you're
Mr. Alderman
I got away
Barnhill.
with it because you
You
didn't
got
get
away with
to-
it last time. I'm
because
not going to let
didn't
you get away
to
with it
before I
anymore.
got to the
I'm going to
discussion.
have to hammer you down.
But I've already made my point. So I come back up and just take a couple of minutes or somebody and tell what you're gonna do on this thing right here. How many bedrooms are we talking about in these 26 units? How many car parking spaces are we gonna do? They're pull-in parking spaces. Do, you know, something.
I'm going to let Mr. Girth from staff
Yeah, that'll
address
work.
some of that.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to bring up 2 points, one of a procedure, and then just a little bit of history to offer some context. First of all, this regarding Alderman Barnhill, this is the second of 3 readings for the rezoning. The development plan, which follows, only requires 1 reading. So if the board was inclined to move the rezoning forward with a favorable vote and didn't approve the development plan. The third reading on the rezoning would come in 2 weeks. So that's a procedural. I do want to bring up that, just a bit of history, that back in 2010, and I'm using a general time frame, that right around that time, HUD, which the Franklin Housing Authority reports to, allowed for public housing agencies to make a higher, better use of their property. And at that time, the Franklin Housing Authority came and prepared a master housing plan for essentially their 6 primary properties, the parcels that they have. And they shared that with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen at the time. And while it wasn't formally adopted as we do a development plan in the city, it did and coincide with our consolidated housing plan, which we're obligated to keep updated as an entitlement community that also reports to HUD. And every time we update that plan, which is essentially every 5 years, we make sure that our public housing agency aligns with that. I can assure you that the housing plan that they submitted, even for this parcel on Shawnee, is very aligned with what was submitted in this very large master plan. And as you heard from the residents, and I attended the meeting last week too, and as we know and hear frequently, that the need for affordable housing and is in demand. So I share that with you from the standpoint that they are complying with our development regulations and with their master plan as they presented it back in about 2010. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
They're here. Alderman Baggett.
So a couple questions relating to zoning. And I echo Brandy's comments on everything she said about the Housing Authority. This is a difficult one. I don't want to also negate the fact that the neighbors are not out of line either. And I would push back on anyone who would suggest that, and this board has adopted an Envision Franklin plan that, I'm not going to read through it all, but basically says the infill developments should be designed that duplexes resembling single-family dwellings are located on the periphery in order to provide transition to existing. There's 5 or 6 points in our adopted Envision Franklin plan that if this was anywhere else with any other developer, we would say no. But because of Mr. Gurr's point, and because of that history, there's history here. So I don't want anyone to take into account that they're not being heard or that their concerns aren't reasonable, because we have adopted a plan that says that this shouldn't happen. This type of thing shouldn't happen. However, there's more to the story. I want to ask a question relating to, and let me make this, but we should honor the history and the plan that was submitted and the communication that we had in the past, and I do believe that. But on zoning, if we do not pass the zoning and the applicant comes back, this is a question for staff. So the concerns of the parking in the back, 2-story structures, massing of buildings, what changes if they come back? What is going to be different this next go around that is not different than this time?
So the question is, if you deny the
Zoning, and I guess that means the development plan.
Well, if you
would-
deny the zoning, a development plan has to have an associated zoning with it. So if you deny the zoning, the development plan is dead.
So if they come back with, they would choose a zoning that would allow for the duplexes, and there would be parking in the front. But does that make?
So parking would not be allowed in the front.
Never would be allowed in the
I'd like to clarify
front.
something about the parking. The parking meets the zoning ordinance today. There are 3 types, or there's multiple types of frontage requirements under the PD zoning. They're PD zoning today, they're continuing to ask for PD zoning. Those frontage types require frontage in either the side or the rear of the property. So they're meeting the zoning ordinance today for the requirements.
Is there a zoning classification that is not single-family that allows for duplexes, multiplexes that would not require parking in the back?
That would not require.
not. How do we fix that?
So every other alternative zoning option that would have
You can
multiplexes,
have-
duplexes?
No. So you can also have, so there are different zoning types where you could have a duplex. You do not have to have a parking lot. There are options when duplexes can have parking in parking garages or as part of the structure themselves, detached garages. So
But because of the
There's
nature of
not
this
this-
property, that's a limiting factor on detached garages and various other places to park. I guess the question is, if to Brandy's point, the parking in the back and all of that is there a feasible route where parking could not be in the back if they came back? Because everything I've heard, to get the number of units close to the same or more, that there's really not an option where the parking is not likely to be in the back. I mean,
I think you're going to have to redesign the site. I think you're going to have to relook at the type of housing options you put on the site if you want parking to be more incorporated into the building themselves.
And there never will be street parking, is what I've heard. That this is, because of the narrowness of the lot, is pretty much said there likely would not be be able to have street parking.
The street parking was not, it was considered early on, I believe, due to the nature of the cost to install the on-street parking and to pull back and establish a new curb and gutter and to put new parking to pavement and all of that in. That was scrapped because part of the reason I believe is that that road is a local road, so there's not that impact fee, what's it called, offset that they could apply for. So it was cost prohibitive to put that in. I mean, this is the housing authority. They're trying to maximize their funds.
Is there, one of the other things in Envision Franklin says the lot and yard sizes along the periphery of the development should be consistent with those in adjacent lots. Is there a possibility that we could have that type of development if we submitted it back, or if we referred
What kind of development are you asking for?
with a lot, with the backyards, lots and yard sizes along the periphery are consistent with those in existing adjacent lots?
Well, they're not proposing individual lots. They're proposing one single lot with multiple housing types on the same lot.
And the point
which
is, I
what
think
they have there
this is a
today.
challenging piece of property.
It is.
And there's really not a whole, I mean, it's challenging to get the number of units under our zoning ordinance, makes it even more challenging. And the Franklin Housing Authority is working hard on this to make it right. It's not easy. I don't know that there's, and I think to the Miss Sandy's point, she makes a lot of good ones. And so I'm going to vote for this on this rezoning. I'm going to also have more comments at the
Absolutely.
development plan.
Okay.
Anybody else? Ready to vote? Alderman Peterson?
I was just going to say, this does fit with our zoning ordinance as it is. I have never been in favor of having parking in the back, whether it's here or in even business areas. And so I can appreciate that, but it does fit otherwise.
Before we vote, then if that's the case, then we need to look at doing whatever we need to do to eliminate that requirement and restriction of parking in the rear.
Yes.
I agree that Columbia Avenue and the auto shop and the bank and whoever else up there's never going to be a way to widen Columbia Avenue if you ever want to do it, because we made them stick it right on the street. But what I don't think you can do here is just take this particular project and not abide by the rules that we require everybody that comes in with a development plan and anything else to abide by. And now, if we don't like the rule, change it. But you can't just change the horse in the middle of the stream and say, well, I don't like it for this person, but I do like it for this person. That's not the way it's going to work. It's not the way it can work. So I'm I won't vote for the rezoning. We've still got the third reading coming up with a site plan on top of that. So we've got some other opportunities on this right here. So
Mr. Mayor, may I make one other comment? Another thing that we have in our zoning ordinance requires that every house be elevated 18 inches above the ground. And if you are someone that has a disability, whenever you need to be able to go right in. In fact, this has a...
It has a modification of standards
This
to
has
waive that.
a modification of standards to allow to have a ground level entry. And we need to look at that. I think the idea of having the housing, or not just housing, but all buildings right up to the street, and also having the 18-inch extension there was for looks. And sometimes it's not workable.
So,
Vice Mayor, go ahead.
yes, sir. So, I wanted to say also too that I understand that FHA has really met the expectations of the city. In your planning, that's what you've always done, and nobody kind of foresaw that this would meet, I guess, disapproval. My conviction, because I know how long this would stand, 60, 70 years, is that I have a hard time supporting something that I don't believe in, knowing that it's going to be forever in my lifetime. And it is at no fault of Franklin Housing Authority that they just decided, well, we're just going to do what we feel like works in the space. They followed the guidelines in which we set forth to them. That's, to me, where it's broken. And that's nobody's fault. But I can't live with myself knowing it would be something that I don't feel like is appropriate for decades and decades and decades. So.
Okay. Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
yes,
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. We'll now go to item number 7. This is a public hearing, consideration of Resolution 2021-163, a resolution approving a development plan for Shawnee PUD subdivision with 3 modification of development standards: parking, foundation height, and transitional buffers for the property located south of North Petway Street and east of Shawnee Drive, located at 1101 Shawnee Drive. Joey?
Thank you. The applicant is proposing to construct 26 dwelling units within 6 new residential buildings as part of the Shawnee Place PUD subdivision. The plan calls for the removal of the existing buildings and new buildings to be constructed. The Envision Franklin Land Use Plan places this lot in the mixed residential design concept, which states that the defined character across the design concept may be varied by neighborhood, but new development should transition from existing development patterns in adjacent neighborhoods. There is an additional special consideration in Envision Franklin that states Franklin Housing Authority properties may include a limited number of multifamily residential in accordance with their master plans. The plan as proposed features a variety of buildings and with setbacks that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods. Walkways create a pedestrian-friendly community that connect to city parks and green spaces. The plan overall meets the recommendations and principles of Envision Franklin and does mostly meet the regulations of the zoning ordinance, including overall site layout as well as screening and buffering. There are 3 exceptions to that, and they are requesting 3 modifications of standards with this PUD. First is to request to revise the minimum parking standard for multifamily as follows: for 2.25 spaces per 2-bedroom unit and 2.75 spaces per 3-bedroom unit. Section 10.1.6 of the ordinance states that the minimum of 2.5 spaces be required for every 2-bedroom and 3 spaces for every 3-bedroom. In addition to site constraints, the applicant has provided additional examples and supplementary information that justifies this request. The same request was previously approved by the board, mayor, and aldermen for the Cherokee PUD subdivision across the street. The staff recommends approval of MOS number 1, as does Planning Commission. For the second modification, the applicant is requesting to remove the 18-inch minimum height for the non-multifamily building types, a foundation requirement. The zoning ordinance requires townhouse and duplex building types to have minimum 18-inch foundations. In order to comply with applicable housing regulations, the residential buildings must be constructed at a ground level or feature ADA accessible ramps to the various entries. Given the public nature of this housing project, it is important to provide as much accessibility for each dwelling unit as possible. And similarly, this same request was previously approved by the board mayor and alderman for the Cherokee PD subdivision across the street. The third MOS is to request to allow approximately 550 square feet of the southernmost building to encroach into the Transition Zone 2 buffer. Each development, new development that abuts existing residential development is required to have 2 transitional zones between the 2 sites. Section 8.1.2C of the zoning ordinance permits only limited passive uses and site features to be located within the Transition Zone 2 buffer. Due to the long, narrow shape of the lot and what is proposed provides more of a buffer between new and existing development when compared to the current site configuration, staff can support the request for this instance.
Can or can't?
Can, yes. We are recommending
Yes.
approval of MOS number 3, as does Planning Commission. So we're recommending approval for all 3 MOSs. Vernon, do you have anything else you wanted to say? Okay, I figured. Okay. So with all of that, just to reiterate, the plan as proposed does meet the regulations of the zoning ordinance with the 3 exceptions in the MOSs, and we are recommending approval on those MOSs. And overall, staff recommends approval with conditions of this resolution, as does Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I'd like to get the public hearing, and then you can go back to Joey, or do you have something specific
I
that's
wanted
urgent?
him to clarify just something he
Go
just
ahead.
said. Can you explain, it says here, where is it? Due to the long, narrow shape of the lot, what is proposed provides more of a buffer between the new and existing development. What does more of a buffer mean?
So the existing buildings are closer to the rear property line,
And these are.
or they were. I'm not sure if they may have been torn down, I'm not sure. But the buildings of what was there before is closer to the rear property line. So the proposed plan pushes the building forward, so it's further away from what was there already. So it is encroaching slightly into that Zone 2 buffer, but overall, it's still further towards the road than towards the rear property line.
So what's between that and what's behind that? I mean,
So
I want to know if it's stopping here, what's on this side of it or where?
it's still just parking, and then the Zone 1 buffer where the screening would be. So it's just a little bit of encroachment into the Zone 2 buffer. Each zone is 25 feet.
Okay, all right. I wanted to know, thank you, 25 feet, okay.
Okay, we're still in the public hearing, and I have one speaker card specifically that mentioned the development plan, and that was Derwin Jackson. I will make an exception if there's somebody that wants to make a specific comment that's already spoken, but specific only to the development plan. I'll allow 1 minute on that for anybody that's already spoken. So, Derwin, I'll give you 2.
Okay, thank you, sir. Again, I'm Derwin Jackson, President and CEO of the Franklin Housing Authority. And just to briefly on the development plan, is to let the BOMA know is that we have already secured the tax credits for this project, meaning that, this is going to be about a $14 million project that we already have secured the funding for it. And so part of this is, again, it was spoken that we are on a tight deadline to have this completed by next year, December of 2023. So that's, that is just, we have, it's been a long process, and we understand that. And again, we listen to all concerns. We always have and always will. But I just think that's important for you to know. And the other thing is that we have, again, it's been said, we have followed everything that we were supposed to do. We followed everything that's been required of us to do. And so for that. Now, this is just, it's been a challenge. But that is just what is at stake for us, is that, we have the funding that's in place, and that any delay with this would jeopardize that funding. Thank you.
1 minute.
Robert James, with James Plus Associates for the Franklin Housing Authority. I just wanted to address a couple of questions that came up from Alderman Barnhill, and I believe Alderman Berger. You're asking a little bit more about the buffer, and for one thing, the proposed buffer, this is something that will be fleshed out in full during the site plan stage. We just wanted to indicate some of the things the Housing Authority is willing to do, even beyond what's required in Article 8 of the zoning ordinance to help meet that. But essentially, you're going to have the parking area that ends at the transition line between Transition Zone 2 and Transition Zone 1. So you have that 25-foot buffer for Transition Zone 1. And for about probably over half of the site, the middle part of the site, there's a retaining wall that's up to 6 feet high. So you're going to have cars here and your retaining wall up here. Then you know, especially in the middle of the site, that's kind of the high point of the site as far as elevation goes. It's going to continue going uphill some. That's where, we would have our evergreens, that's where the fence would be, et cetera. And it's going to be a pretty robust buffer from that standpoint. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to declare the public hearing. You have 1 minute.
I just wanted to say that I believe that the people on West End Circle are not against public housing. One more time. We're not against it. We're against putting the parking in our backyards. We don't understand it. We don't think that's the intent of Envision Franklin and how it was done. We thought that the parking was designed to be on the interior of the development. And now it's not in the interior development, it's bringing us into the development. And I don't understand that. And so if we have a wall, a parking lot, and a 20-foot structure, all you're gonna have is noise reverberating and bringing back into West End Circle. I want public housing, and I want more residents, I want more people in my neighborhood. I just don't want it done this way. Thank you.
You've got 1 minute. You have to come up here, ma'am. Does anybody else want the one? If you want 1 minute, you better come up to the podium now, because I'm getting ready to close the public hearing.
Backyards. Backyards. Kids need backyards to play in. They don't need to play in a parking lot. They certainly don't need to play on the street.
Who's taking away the backyard?
Backyards. You have backyards. People have backyards up against, and that's how West End Circle was designed, I think, in 1942.
Again, I have to agree with Eric. I don't think anybody on West End Circle is against public housing. I don't know how the funds for these projects work, but would it be possible to take the funds that were going to be used to rebuild and possibly remodel the existing structures? Because I don't think anybody has a problem with the housing being there. It's just the lack of privacy. And to reiterate about the backyard situation, right now, our backyards back up to those backyards. But now what we're going to do is have our backyards up into a parking lot. And I think that's a big concern for all of us. So I think maybe we can just take another look at this, not do away with the whole thing, but possibly maybe remodel what's there now. I don't know.
Scott.
1 minute.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's what I said.
I think there's been some confusion about the situation. For those of you who weren't able to visit the site, Clyde mentioned it earlier. Here's what's happening. Their backyard, we're planning on putting a fence, a 6-foot impervious fence. The grade falls 8 feet. Then there's a wall that drops another 5, he said. The other day he said 6.
Yep.
That's a total of almost 20 feet. 6 plus 8 plus 6 is 20. Come out 20 feet is the first parking stall. then 18 feet is the parking stall, then the building at 20 feet tall. So the top of the building is going to be at the top of the fence. What did I just add up? 40 feet away, plus the sidewalk, so 45, 46 feet away. So I want to make sure that everybody understands the context of this, because it was described backwards. We're actually not above the neighbors, we're actually below the neighbors. So just wanted to kind of clarify the dimensional and the architectural aspect of this.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed, and I'll entertain a motion. We'll be going through this like we did before, a motion to start the process of approving all the modification of standards. So I'll entertain a motion on Resolution 2021-163.
I move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Berger. Okay, we'll now go to modification of standard number 1, which has to do with the parking, changing it to 2.25 for the 2 bedrooms and 2.75 for the 3 bedrooms. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Ready to vote on modification standard 1? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
No.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. Next, we'll go to the foundation height to remove the 18-inch requirement. Is there a motion?
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Second, Alderman Potts. Any discussion on that one? Modification standard 2. Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
No.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. Now we'll go to the transition to development, the encroachment into the transitional zone 2. I entertain a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
I said second.
Thank you, Alderman Hanson. Any discussion on that one? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Vice Mayor Blanton.
Still no.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes 7-1. Now we'll go back to the motion with all the approved modification of standards. Any discussion on it? You ready to vote?
There were a couple things I wanted to point out. We don't need to make any, there were the things that the gentleman brought up regarding the things that you're doing. Those are just, wouldn't add those to any kind of motion, would we? To require those in the development plan, the fence, all of that, we're just,
No, those are things that are already in the, what's the term that you use?
well, there's some over and above.
Some of it's going to be in the site plan.
The applicant's agreeing to put them in the site plan.
We have it on video.
The other thing is, I also spoke with the applicant, and they were willing, one suggestion that I had was, and I've heard, is moving the larger building maybe in a different proximity on site, and the applicant indicated that they may be willing to do that. That would not push this back through the process, correct, if they decided to move the buildings?
Correct. If they wanted to reorient where the longer buildings are with the shorter buildings.
move the longer building
You can
further
do that at the
south.
site plan level, yes.
Now, I really ask the applicant to look into if that large, I know the site has constraints, but would ask that the applicant look into that extensively as best you can in good faith on this plan. Thank you.
Alderman Brown.
The one comment, I feel like in a lot of ways, FHA is, in a lot of ways, they're almost negotiating against themselves here. They've got a zoning that they're trying to meet. Concerns about lighting and parking have now created walls and fences that are going up, which are creating the separation. I will tell you, one of the most probably compelling things I heard tonight was this green space on green space. The gentleman who talked about yards on yards. But I almost feel like maybe that would have been the original path, but suddenly, out of concern, we've proactively sort of started to build barriers to prevent all of that. And I would just say that, you know, for as complicated as this is and as tough as the zoning and the timing and all of that, if the neighborhood really doesn't want a wall and a fence, and there's a way to create some step up from that parking lot or some way to make those things flow, then I think that should really be discussed so that we're not just putting up big tall fences and creating a 35-foot barrier for the sake of negotiating against ourselves here for what we think people want versus what they really want. And that would be my comment here.
Any other comments, Alderman Berger?
Well, I don't know if, thank you, Scott, for explaining that, because that really helped. That makes a lot of sense to know what's happening there. But at the same time, you know, I don't think, you know, you've got a parking lot and everything. Do you want access to these people's yards from a parking lot? It just doesn't seem right that, you know, you would want to have like a staircase or something to get into people's yards or something, you know, and I get what you're saying,
Yeah,
Matt, because you sort of want that interaction between neighbors and things of that nature, but it seems so far down in the way the landscape runs and the typography, it's just difficult to make that happen. So some places just aren't conducive to that. What kind of lighting is being used here?
Right now, it's conceptual in nature. The site plan would define what lighting
Okay.
they have.
Yeah.
There's a requirement for residential mixed-use development to have a maximum lighting height of 18 feet, and it's required to have ornamental lighting. Cobra-style commercial lighting is prohibited in this area. and in-
Okay, so it'd be very, yes, very soft lighting, okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? We're ready to vote on the original motion with the approved pre-modification of standards. Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Blanton?
No, sir.
Alderman Hanson?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Berger?
Yes.
Alderman Brown?
Yes.
Alderman Potts?
Yes.
Alderman Baggett?
Yes.
Passes 7-1. We'll now go to item number 8, which is City of Franklin Contract 2021-0284, Parkland Impact Fee, Payment of Fee Only Agreement for Shawnee PUD Subdivision between the City of Franklin and Franklin Housing Authority. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Hanson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Potts. Any discussion?
I think it just should be said how much the project is obligating at $43,040.
Well,
Is that correct?
let me remind you, the city usually reimburses them.
I just,
And that'd be a separate request coming down the road.
yeah.
Okay, we're going to reverse order on the voting.
You gonna start on the bottom?
Pardon?
You gonna start on the bottom again?
I've changed my
Easy.
language. We're going to reverse
We
the
want to know
order.
who's at the bottom.
Alderman Baggett.
Oh,
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton, rather. And Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to item 9. This is a public hearing, and this is consideration resolution 2021-164, resolution approving a revised development plan for the Gateway Village PUD subdivision for the property located south of Linwood Way and west of Franklin Road at 120 Davenport Boulevard.
Thank you, and the parking's already constructed for this one, so. The applicant is requesting to add educational facilities as a permitted use with the Gateway Village PUD subdivision. The proposed academy would utilize existing office space within the development. No additional buildings or square footage is being proposed with this revision. Due to the nature and management of the private academy, no additional parking spaces are required. The most recent revision to the Gateway Village PUD subdivision was approved this past November. The educational facility is classified as an institutional use, and all institutional uses must be approved by Board Mayor and Alderman for any PUD. So that's why you're hearing this today. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2021-164, as does Planning Commission. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak to this body? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
Move for
So,
Thank you,
Second.
Alderman Hanson. Is there a second? Alderman Peterson. Open for discussion.
I've got I'm sorry, guys, but this is right next to our office, and I'm there every day. I love the idea of the school. Once we pass this, there will always be able to be a traditional school there. Right now, it's a hybrid school. This property has no capacity to have any type of pickup line, or I know that's not the immediate use that this school is going to have. They're not, because it's a hybrid and it works. But the building owner and owners in proximity are concerned with that, and so there are some things we could do conditionally on this, but long-term, there could be any type of school here, traditional or hybrid or otherwise, with this use. And so I'll have to vote against it for that reason. There's no capacity for drop-off and pick-up aisles for this space at all. I mean, it just doesn't exist. And the concern is down the road that it might evolve and become more of a traditional school, and there's nothing that can happen at that time. So I'll be voting against this.
Any other comments? Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Alderman Barnhill?
Is there another reading on this?
No.
No.
I did have a question.
Alderman Potts?
Eric, did you have something to?
I just want to make sure it's just the development plan, so it's one vote.
So, in association with the development plan, as Alderman Baggett was just stating right there, is there any information by the applicant in regards to occupancy or hours of usage, et cetera? If you could just restate that for us.
Nothing on the plan was talked about in terms of hours of operation. It did specify on the plan that they would provide one parking space per staff member. I can't remember offhand how many
Amy,
staff
can you
members that
speak up?
was.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. In terms of hours of operation, that was not listed on the development plan. In terms of capacity, they listed one parking space per staff member. I'd have to go back and look at the plan to see what that number was. They did list 65 students.
This is one of those that was in the, we were elected kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And with the one per faculty member, but there's not any for student,
No, there is parking for students. It was listed as one space per 3 students.
one per 3.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry, clarify.
Any other questions or comments?
So,
Alderman Berger?
Patrick, your concern is there's no way to drop off and pick up? What are they doing now?
I think the intention is that it is a hybrid school. Part of their students will be online and not even visiting this facility.
Okay,
The students that will be visiting the facility will be parking in parking spaces.
all right,
And if the parents are dropping the students off, they will be parking in parking spaces to do so.
okay, so,
And they've provided a certain amount of parking associated with that.
okay, so I failed to see the problem here.
But if this school, once you change this, any school can go there. If this school, their lease runs out in 3 years, they need more space, then BGA can go there.
Okay, so if they can go there, then we have no requirements for a school for drop-off pickups? We cannot require anything? if
We do
another-
have parking requirements for, we don't have parking requirements for drop-off. If they choose to do a drop-off, they would have to do a site plan to show where that drop-off is.
So that.
They-
that
If they
would
have
trigger
problems,
that.
if there's a problem with people trying to drop off in the drive aisles, then that's a problem that can be solved by either talking to the HOA, even talking to the city about, you
Or
file a
if the-
complaint. But they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to just drop off in
Right,
drive aisles.
I wouldn't think so. And also, if that school went away, it doesn't mean it would stay a school. It could be something else.
They would have to meet the requirements of the development plan and meet the parking requirements of the development plan. So,
I mean, it could go away and become something else.
they'd have, so there's a certain amount of entitlements that are with the development plan. So like if it wanted to go back to an office like it's previously approved as, that would most likely meet the requirements because it's approved that way today. If they wanted to change it to a restaurant, now that might not necessarily be allowed
That might
because
not work.
there's different parking requirements, and that's not how the development plan
Sure.
is approved today. So it's approved, it would be approved as a school.
Yeah.
It was originally approved as an office.
Correct.
It was originally approved as an office, okay.
Correct.
So it could go back to an office. Well,
Could
the
go
other
back
thing
to
is,
an
I think
office.
we also have to understand,
Mhm.
today, we have a lot of hybrid schools.
We do.
And we're going to have more hybrid schools, and they're coming. And they're going to continue to come, and we're going to have a lot of different alternative education systems, so I'll support this.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ready to vote? Alderman Baggett.
No.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
No.
And Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes 6-2. We'll now go to item number 10. This is a public hearing, consideration resolution 2021-161, a resolution amending the Coletta Park PUD subdivision to extend the vested rights for the property located northeast of South Carruthers Road and south of Murfreesboro Road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the sake of public hearing, I'm going to quickly go over what vested rights means. We talked about it at the work session, but starting in 2015, any development plan that was approved by the BOMA was granted vested rights. Vested rights means that on the date of the approval of that development plan, the municipal level regulations in place at the time dictate that plan for its entirety of its development. There are certain milestones that a development has to meet along the way to keep those vested rights and extend them. And that's why this group is here today. They're asking for an extension of those vested rights because they are up against one of those timelines of milestones. The applicant's request is to extend the vesting period of 1 year or until December 12th, 2023, in order for the applicant to begin vertical construction. In terms of the current development plan, it conforms to the then approved R1 zoning. The Coletta Park plan proposes 199 single-family lots. It had 2 modification of standard approvals. Lot widths vary between 65 feet and 120 feet, with a handful of lots wider than 120 feet. Lots along the perimeter of the adjacent county subdivision are as wide or wider than their county neighbors, and a tree preservation easement runs along the length of the western border along the Cross Creek subdivision. The associated traffic study requires several off-site improvements included with this development plan, including improving Carruthers Road to a 3-lane connector road. In terms of the current status of this project, the plan did comply with the first milestone within that 3-year time period. It obtained a site plan, it obtained a necessary permit, and it began site preparation in the terms of demoing a piece of property that was on the site. However, the site does not have an active site plan. They are currently working with the city to reapprove their site plan process. So the goal is that they could still meet the vertical construction deadline within their current time limits of December 2022. This vesting extension request is just to give them that extra buffer to ensure that they can still meet that goal and not automatically lose vesting in that time frame. In terms of vesting impacts, if the vesting period is not extended, the project entitlements would cease to exist and work orders would stop. However, in the review of the plan today against current city regulations, the plan generally complies with today's standards. There's a couple things that would need to be modified slightly, but from a staff perspective, we think that's doable to meet current standards. And another vesting impact to consider is that if the vesting expires, the associated off-site road construction improvements would also have to be reconsidered, and several other projects in the area are depending on those roadway improvements as existing conditions for their project, so a larger discussion would have to happen for that. Staff recommends that you extend the vested right should you feel that it's in the best interest of the community.
Okay, are there any speakers for this
Long.
resolution 2021-161? Not, I'm going to declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 11, this is consideration of Resolution 2021-167, a resolution amending the Refuge Center for Counseling PUD subdivision to extend the vested rights for the property located south of Long Lane and east of Williamson County Ag Center.
Okay. Rinse and repeat on what vested rights are from the previous item. This one's a little bit different. This request is to extend that first vesting milestone an additional 2 years until June 24th, 2022. That would allow the applicant time to obtain a site plan approval, secure necessary permits, and begin site preparation. The applicant currently has a site plan being reviewed by the city today, so they're going through that process. Their extension, again, is to just ensure that they have enough time to get through the process accordingly and meet this first milestone in enough time. The current development plan conforms to the then zoning that was approved along with it. The plan includes a single-family office building, parking lot, and formal open space. The building is proposed at 15,200 square feet and 2 stories. The plan did not require any modification of standards, and a right turn lane into the site was proposed along Long Lane, although the associated traffic study did not define any off-site improvements. So it was a above and beyond issue there. In terms of vesting impacts, if the vesting was lost or not extended, the project would, again, cease to exist and stop work orders would be issued if applicable. But in review of the plan, the current plan generally complies to today's standards. And so staff would recommend that you approve the vesting extension should you see it's in the best interest of the community.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Does anyone want to speak to Resolution 2021-167? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Who was that? Alderman Brown, is there a second? Alderman Peterson, thank you. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton, I'm just kidding.
That's fine, yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 12, consideration of ordinance 2021-52 to rezone 3.56 acres from Regional Commerce 6 District to Plan PD 5.1 per 3,803 district for the property located north of Cool Springs Boulevard, east of Mac Hatcher Parkway at 201 Cool Springs Boulevard, Legends View at Franklin PUD subdivision, establishing a public hearing for March 8th, 2022.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Brown. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
And Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Now, we'll go to item 13, Resolution 2022-08, a resolution to support restoring the historic revenue sharing relationship between the state of Tennessee and its local government to return a local share of the single article cap to local governments. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Alderman.
Second.
Second by Alderman Potts. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton, excuse me again. Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
And Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 14 is reappointment of Jonathan Langley to the Board of Zoning Appeals Committee.
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Barnhill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 15 is appointment of Eric McElroy to the Sustainability Commission.
Move for approval.
Appropriate motion. Is there a second? Alderman Hanson, thank you. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Hanson.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 16 is consideration of appointment of Stephen Dunn and Eric McElroy to the Building and Street Standards Board of Appeals. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Alderman Barnhill. Original motion was by Alderman Berger. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Blanton.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Hanson. Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Potts.
Yes.
Alderman Baggett.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I hear a lot of rustling of paper. I assume that means that there may be a motion coming.
Motion
Move
to
for approval.
adjourn.
I move for approval that we
like
leave
that
this
motion,
place
but
now.
Is that an
Move for
adjourned
adjourn.
motion, Alderman Berger, and who was the second?
This is in my head.
All of us.
Alderman Brown. All in favor say aye.
And as Bill O'Reilly used to say, we're out of here.